Next up, guys, we've got an all Brazilian main card opener, and this is a flyweight jiu-jitsu specialty. We got Alan Nascimento taking on Jafel El Pastor Filho. And this is a fun one, guys. I'm surprised there's not more chatter about this fight on Twitter and in the streets this week because I just think of this as one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting fight on the card. Alan Nascimento has put together a fantastic record as a professional. He's 20-6, 2-1 so far in the UFC. Beat Jake Hadley via a unanimous decision. I thought that the odds makers were punishing Jake Hadley, a guy who is showing some promise as a grappler, by saying to him, hey, first fight off the Contender Series, go out there and fight Alan Nascimento. And that's just a brutal matchup for a guy who was way less experienced, a guy who hadn't been around for as long, against a guy who's very sound in the jiu-jitsu. Then you look at the Carlos Hernandez fight, just easily takes his back, rear naked choke in the first round. Sensational from Alan Nascimento, puro oso. This guy really knows his jiu-jitsu. He loses a split decision to Tagiro Ulanbekov, a loss that is aged just fine, as Tagiro Ulanbekov is 4-1 in the UFC. His only loss, a close one to Tim Elliott, where Tim Elliott cheated his ass off. So I think that you look at Alan Nascimento, and he's shown you nothing but solid results inside the UFC. What I think is a little bit concerning is the pre-UFC results. So he did lose a split decision to Raulian Paiva back on the Contender Series in 2018, and he did not have another professional fight until 2021. I'm sure some of that could be attributed to, whatever you want to call it, the COVID pandemic and all these things, but the guy has not been supremely active. He withdrew from two recent bouts against Tim Elliott and Sumu Darshi. He had a scheduled bout with what's his name? A couple different guys fall through on the regional scene as well. So basically, the guy's just had a hard time booking fights. And when he does get the fights booked, he doesn't always make it to them, right? With these last couple of pullouts, he pulled out of 2 fights in 2023. Now it's his first booking here in 2024. The guy last fought in January 2023. So it's been a little while for Alan Nascimento. Now, is he a very talented guy? Yes. Did he lose a close split decision to Raulian Paiva? Yeah, he did. And it was a fun fight. It was a great scrap. It could have went either way. But Raulian Paiva really struggled in the UFC, guys. 3-4 in the promotion. Lost to Sergey Morozov. Got knocked out by Sean O'Malley in the very first round. No shame in that one. But also got finished by Rogerio Bontorin. I thought he kind of got screwed in that one. Lost a split decision to Kai Kara France. The guy just could not catch a break. But you look at overall what he brought to the table. Raulian Paiva got knocked out by Kyler Phillips and then came back and won. Like he was a fun guy, but he was walking a very fine line. And you just look at Alan Nascimento, and in that fight, he spent a lot of time on bottom, spent a lot of time fishing for submissions and like hunting for stuff. Didn't quite get it, and that's just a negative EV style long term. It's kind of hard to win fights if you're going to play off of your back. And I do think in his last couple of fights, against a Carlos Hernandez, against a Jake Hadley, I think Alan Nascimento had a pronounced advantage in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I wonder if that's the case in this one. I don't think so. I really rate the black belt of Jafel Filho. I call him the world's most dangerous pastor. I think that he is a fantastic Jiu-Jitsu player. And when I'm looking at, Jafel Filho, let's just examine his record, right? He's 2-1 in the UFC. He obviously lost to Muhammad Mokaev, but if you guys remember that fight, he had Muhammad Mokaev dead to rights on a knee bar, guys. Like a knee bar that is going to just injure you, right? And Mokaev was injured, but he just didn't tap. He's a son of a gun, man. The kid has a real will to win. And you could like him, you could dislike him. He's been cut from the UFC. You could agree with that finding. You could disagree. All those things. If you just separate that from the talent, that guy got his leg extended in an insane fashion, right? You can see it visibly on television that it's the wrong direction, right? It's being pulled like front way. It just looks like this, a way that the leg should never go, right? And Mokaev basically said, like, I'd rather lose my leg than be, a loser, right? I'd rather break my leg than go home a loser today. And what happened was Jafel Filho sold out. He wraps it up with both arms, tries to pull as hard as he can, tries to rip into it, sell, and he spends all the energy he has left in round 3. And he had nothing left. And he just spent it all, and he did some damage, but Mokaev just didn't tap, stayed tough, and with like one leg, just like grabs onto the guy's back, pulls himself up, and locks in the rear naked choke. And it was really, really gangster, right? So I just take my hat off to Muhammad Mokaev for that. That's the exact same way that Jafel Filo lost to Luan Mateus, third round rear naked choke. So can the guy slow down a little bit over the course of 15 hard minutes? Yes, he can, because he's an all-action fighter. You look at Jafel Filo, and he has one win via decision, one loss via decision. This is a guy that is playing for keeps, right? He is going out there to kill or be killed. And when you look at his 5 wins via knockout, including against Roybert Echeverria on Contender Series, it looked like he was probably going to win the decision. It looked like he was starting to run away with the decision a little bit. And I just remember him sitting on his punches and saying, like, nah, I'm getting this guy out of here. And like walked into it, threw hard, and eventually put Roybert down. And all I heard was positive things about Roybert in the lead up to that fight, guys, about how he was a great prospect, about how he was going to do so well. I was convinced. I'm talking about by people from his gym, people close to him. Now he's ended up lost on the regional scene since then, right? So things have gone off the rails for the guy. But you look at everything that was said about Roybert Echeverria in the lead up to that fight, and I was like, man, this kid is going to be a very live underdog. And it just wasn't the case, right? At the end of the day, Jafel Filo, he was good enough on the ground. He was good enough on the feet. He could mix it up where he needed to. And the guy just has this kind of winning quality to him, right? Against Muhammad Mokaev, he found a guy who had an even bigger winning quality to him. But when he needed it, he went out there and took it from Roybert Echeverria in the 3rd round. Daniel Barras went out there and dropped him, in the 1st round, right? Put some hands on him, landed big shots. We've seen Daniel Barras come out there. He's a hot starter. He likes to come out there, bring the heat early. And Daniel Barras tried to go out there and really take it to Jafel Filo. And Jafel Filo basically hit the deck and then instantly started kicking in, hey, you know what? It's jiu-jitsu time. And he just started going through his series, step 1, step 2, step 3, and it's over. That's what Jafel Filo does on his jiu-jitsu offense. You look at his record, guys, 10-2 career to the submission, a fantastic record. He's a fantastic black belt with a great lineage. You look at the other side, 15-0 is Alan Nascimento to the submission, never been submitted, never been, I don't think he's ever been stopped with strikes either. Let me look at that. Yeah, he's never been stopped with strikes. This is a guy who all 6 of his professional losses are via decision. This is an impressive fight, right? Jafel Filo is a finisher. This guy, Alan Nascimento, wins fights. He's only lost decision. So something has got to give, I feel, in this fight. And when you're looking at Jafel Filo, I think he is clearly the better striker of these 2 guys. I think that Alan Nascimento can hold his own a little bit on the feet. I think he can offer some tricky strikes, but he has 1 win in his career via knockout, via strikes. And we've seen, this guy, Jafel Filo, pack some power in his strikes. Whether that's the kicks, whether that's the punches, this guy can really hurt you with strikes, and he can put you away, in terms of submission skills. He could club and sub you. He could hurt you, then follow you to the ground and finish you. And, we've obviously never seen Nascimento get subbed, but if you get hurt, it doesn't matter who you are, right? You're a black belt, you get punched one time, you're a brown belt. That's always been the way it goes in this fight game. And I think that the fact that this guy's finished, Benicio Salvador, Roybert Echeverria with strikes, went out there and put it to those guys. Honestly, I thought he could have finished Ode Osborne via strikes if he had just tried to belly him out from the back take and go for punches. But instead, he shows off the black belt, the jiu-jitsu, and El Pastor, the world's most dangerous pastor, took home another win in that fight. So he's on a nice little run here now, 2-fight winning streak, and he fought as recently as this March. So he's getting back in there, keeping that activity going, staying busy inside the octagon, things that I like to see. So yeah, I have to admit I was a little bit surprised by the number here, but I'll tape it and see if anything jumps out at me. Obviously, a little bit more experience on the Alan Nascimento side. Tiny bit of size. He's a little bit bigger, but I feel Jafel Filo is going to compete with him in every phase of the fight. So should be a fun one.